I'm Brad.
I'm Scott.
This is Curiosity.
And we're here with Kathryn. And what's fun about this is that, Kathryn, I don't even know your last name, which happens often on the show, is we just kind of roll in and Kathryn's here, and Kathryn drove in from Austin to come be on the show with us, which is awesome. And we're going to jump into a whole bunch of different topics, none of which I know exactly all of what they are, but Kathryn brought these goodie bags for us. And so I've got like a pretty good idea of like some of the areas that we're going to explore. Kathryn's involved in a number of different businesses, and so we're going to talk a bit about that. But would love to just sort of like cannonball in and just kind of, the theme of the show is curiosity and kind of the role that plays in your life. What are some of the things that you're most curious about right now?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. And just before we jump in, kudos to y'all for developing a platform and just getting going with podcasting to have conversations like this with people. So just a thank you before we start.
Thank you.
So where curiosity has played a role in my life, I think, I've been in about a 7-year transformational period in my life. And as I just turned 40 and it was lovely. I'm so happy to be here and so grateful to have accomplished living for 4 decades.
Boom.
But where, kind of where that's put me in this place in life right now is I've been able to have at least a 4-decade longitudinal look at how curiosity at different points in my life mixed with a desire to follow my intuition, even though I wasn't always great at it maybe, have really transformed my life and taken me to places and put me in situations that I never would have been able to plan or expect. But that's given me a real reverence for how life can work when you honor curiosity and then just kind of pull the string on things that, make you curious and then see where that goes. So where I am right now, where that kind of is relevant is 2 years ago, I bought a little piece of land in West Texas. It's definitely west of here. Because I wanted to give my mother a place to kind of retire one day. And she's not out there yet, but I had just, my family's from a very small town in South Carolina. And so summers growing up, we always would drive, my mom would round up all the cousins in Texas, and there were many, and just whoever would fit in the car, we would all drive out to South Carolina and hang out on my grandpa's farm that he had grown up on. Like, our family didn't always own that land, but they had been in that little area of South Carolina since the late 1700s. Just like poor farmers, literally living on what they could grow. And so, while my grandfather was the last person to actually be a farmer for, like their livelihood, he later went into the Air Force and, was in World War II and had a crazy life. And he's still alive. He's 95. Oh, wow. He's a wild
grandpa
man
on the show.
Yes. Like he still runs 3 miles every other couple days.
Wow.
He's like outlived everyone he knows. And yeah, he's a wild man. A true character, but and he plays a looming role in my life. Someone who has that much character and has seen so much. But as a child, being able to kind of every year have this Huckleberry Finn style experience every summer with my cousins, where my great grandmother, until she passed in the mid 90s, she was a farmer her whole life. And there were. When my grandparents were growing up, they had almost no money. The only thing they bought at the store was like salt, flour, and sugar, and everything else she grew in the garden and on the farm. And, my grandpa like literally picked cotton until he, when he was not in school, until he got drafted and went to the war. Yeah. And so I was able to see her lifestyle, which, even though he was able to provide for her in her later years, she still had a garden until the day she died. And so she knew the seasons. She knew what crops worked and didn't. And then she canned things, to eat, not because it was Pinterest cute. No shame in that. I mean, I do that now. But we also would see our family graveyard. So, it was just interesting to kind of go back and forth between like modern Texas suburban-y style life and then go back to this very rural place that was 25 minutes away from any kind of store. And when you were there, you were just there doing it. And there was no internet in those days. And it was like, the coolest piece of technology we had was a rusty go-kart. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I think as I've grown into an adult and we now live in this modern technologically rich world where you really can look into any curiosity we have, I kind of always had this pull back to this historical view of knowing that, I could walk 10 minutes into the woods and go to my great grandmother's house where it was in the middle of pine woods. And, I didn't even want to be there as a modern person, thinking like, oh, wow, when they were alive, like they made medicine from the plants that were around, like, and if you really had to take care of your body because there was no doctor down the street or anything. So like people living really close to the land. Yeah. And the graveyard, not to be morbid, but it was just kind of a funny, interesting symbol because everyone in our family for the last like 200 years is in the dirt there. And then you see, graves of children who only lived a couple days. There's like a whole baby grave section. Then there's all the people who died in the Spanish flu epidemic. So that was interesting as COVID was happening to be like, yeah, I have had conversations pre-COVID with my grandfather about, even though he was born in the 1920s, so 10 years before that happened, but he knew stories from his grandmother of, 1 out of every 4 people in the community died due to the Spanish flu. And you could see there was a lot of graves from like 1917, 18.
Yeah. Because it was 1918, right, when the Spanish flu hit.
Something around there.
It was a couple of calendar years.
Well,
there was kind of like wave one, and then it like really like hit that kind of second.
I believe there were 500 million people affected, and I think over 50 million died.
Yeah,
I mean something like that. I need to fact check that, but it was. I know they were very large numbers.
Huge, and that was before. I mean, the flu's a virus, so penicillin wouldn't help. But
check myself right now.
But just a great respect for the fragility of life, but also the durability of the human spirit to just like survive. And so I kind of always just had this, I never thought I would be going back to a farming lifestyle because that really is, if you don't have
it's just
like
something you visited, it wasn't something that you lived necessarily.
No, and we didn't get out in the fields, even though there was always a garden. There was always, my grandpa leased the rest of the land because he was already old when I was, a young person. But but he's still, he's fallen off roofs and been struck by lightning, and he's nothing. He's gonna have to get hit by a bus to be taken out.
Sounds like that's not even going to take.
No, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, it might.
So your grandpa is Superman. Awesome. Glad we've established that.
Crazy.
And his name's Clark Kent. Totally fine.
His name is Carl Brunson, and he is a force. That's for sure. But
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I got into did the thing, went to school like everyone's told to do, got a corporate job. I never really thought my creativity could be what paid the bills as I was growing up, which is fine because I then went into the corporate world and did, about 20 years in consulting. But I'll say I'm so grateful to consulting for all it taught me and all the skills I learned and people I met and wonderful people I got to work with. But I knew that was not going to be something I wanted to retire from. Mm-hmm. So I kind of always was just like, what is gonna be my thing, as I'm, a young consultant getting going in the game. And I didn't know for years. So I was just kind of in that wish-wash, washing machine in my brain of, I understand the value of this industry, but it's not for my soul. But it was an amazing learning experience. So in about 2013, I decided I just had to hang it up. So I went back to grad school and started working on a degree in family therapy. But I moved back to Texas, and then I got a job. I was still working at the time where
don't mind me.
No worries. Where everyone worked from home. And this was 2013. So it was kind of before the work from home flood that we all experienced during COVID.
When you say you moved back to Texas, where were you at?
I was in Washington, D.C. So I spent 7 years in D.C., really loved just the culture and the international community and all the people you could meet there. But as a Texan, winter did not agree with me. And I really wanted to get out of anywhere where it snowed, even though Washington, D.C. winters are very mild compared to the further north you go. So I moved home.
They can still get pretty.
It was,
there was get pretty gnarly here in DC.
There was a lot of snow shoveling that I didn't like. But it was just time. That cycle of life was over. So I came back to Texas. I moved home with my dad because I was working full time, and I had a dog who's still with me. He turns 18 next month. And I was doing school full time. So I was kind of running myself ragged. But then I got a job where they were like, yeah, don't care where you live. Like it's open door policy, working from home. And I just decided I needed to just kind of like go for broke and pause grad school and move abroad. Because I didn't know when I was ever going to get that opportunity again. Yeah. So I moved to Mexico City first.
Oh, wow.
And because I'd always wanted to learn Spanish, and I'd been trying on my own, but I never got that immersive opportunity. I'd spent a year living in Japan in high school as like a straight up exchange student, which was crazy. Whole nother topic. And I went back in college for a semester, but Japan wasn't going to be like my, life path, although I learned an immense amount from the culture and the amazing host family that took me in. And that was a whole nother wild story. But so I moved to Mexico City, and I was just by myself, just figuring my way out, trying to learn Spanish, working at the same time. But I had some other friends that I had met through traveling from Tel Aviv. And they were like, if you're looking for a place to go next on your little wild jaunt around the world and you're interested in beaches, you might want to check out Tel Aviv. And so, I was like, yes, please. So after about 4 months in Mexico City, that was kind of my next destination. So I just went back to Texas, packed up my stuff, and booked an Airbnb for a month or something in Tel Aviv. And I was only expecting to stay a month or something. That turned into 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And so this is all just like curiosities were the things that kind of made these small decisions turned out to be things that impacted my life for a very long time after. Yeah. And so, and I'll get back to how the idea of like nature and being immersed in that as a child really kind of loops into what's relevant in my life now. And it turns out it was relevant the whole time. I just didn't have the perspective to kind of like keep the spotlight on it throughout. But so moved to Tel Aviv. I expect to stay only a month. And then because it's such a dynamic city and there are people from all over the world there, and it's a transient city because you have people who move in kind of like a New York or a DC where it is easy to make a friend group like fast. So within 2 weeks, I was like, I had friends and I was like, what? This is crazy.
I'm integrated already.
I have people to go to dinner with. And so I just loved the vibe. It was a fascinating place to learn about history, to just ask people about their families. And they had these crazy stories of the different parts of the Jewish diaspora that they'd all come from. And so that was so interesting and so new to learn about. And so anyway, I stayed for 2.5 years. And about I think the first bar somebody took me to, a bartender passed me a shot of 2B60, which is now, long story short, the alcohol that I import from Israel. And at the time I was drinking that shot, I surely had no idea that I was one day going to be the person who brought it to the US.
And for those just listening and not watching, there's a bottle of it sort of over Kathryn's left shoulder here.
Yes. It is the weirdest, craziest bottle of
just
alcohol.
a little product placement here.
Yeah.
Subtle.
Check it
No
out.
big deal.
Subtle.
No big
Just
deal.
there. We may or may not have to crack it open.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's all for enjoyment. But so when I don't drink anymore, but when I was there, I definitely did. So,
Well, maybe we won't crack it open because I'll be the only one drinking it.
but you have one for me. But so, it was this herbaceous mystery tornado of just herbs and spices and flavors that I could not put my finger on to save my life. And I was like, is this some ancient mystical brew of like the Silk Road that must be like the ancient drink of Israel or something? Like I was like, is this Israel's tequila? Like I have no idea.
On second thought, maybe we should open that. The way you're explaining this, I mean, you just said herbaceous. I just need to like take a moment to just let that have some,
Brad's salivating
just to have some
over here.
echo. Yeah, I mean, I'm clearly just so excited right now. That description was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it truly is a botanical powerhouse that if you're a sommelier or someone who really can point out flavors, I think it would still be the challenge of your life to kind of put your finger on everything that's in it. So
Wow.
I was just like, what is this? And the bartender, was loud. He couldn't explain it. But I really liked it. And so I kind of asked around, it didn't become an obsession right away or anything, but it was just so interesting that I had to kind of pull the string on
What's
what
the
it was.
story on this
Yeah.
thing? Like, let's
This
investigate.
is just, normal liquor has like, a taste, but it doesn't just explode in your mouth and then kind of like clear your palate. But it tastes like one fan described it as something your crazy aunt would give you if you had a cold. And so anyway, so
When you're 5.
Exactly.
That's what the crazy aunt would
Put
definitely
babies to
do.
sleep
Yeah.
with it. But
Maybe not today. It may not be acceptable anymore, but once upon a time.
in my generation, that's how my mother would take me on planes. But and that could explain a lot. But so
That's awesome.
so I was developing this friend group, and I was like, and I was going out a fair bit because Tel Aviv is a very dynamic city at night. It has the beach, and that casualness of the beach extends to the nightlife, and people are just down to meet each other, and have real talks. Like it's not a society where you get stuck in niceties and small talk.
Seems like a really pragmatic,
Yeah.
I mean, we were chatting before. It
Yeah.
was just there a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was only on the ground for less than 72 hours.
Okay.
So but I was crisscrossing Tel Aviv and meeting sort of a mix of different people. And it
Cool.
was, so I'm just like, the scenes of the city are sort of washing over
Yes.
me as you're like describing. It really is just like, it's one of the few like capital cities
Mhm.
that's on the beach.
Yes.
Sort of around the world. It's got this
Totally.
really distinctive kind of feature
Yes,
to it.
and it's
that
very
plays into the
walkable.
culture.
And because the city is kind of aligned towards the beach, along that, 2 or 3 mile stretch, each beach has its own little like culture. There's the dog beach, the beach that the young people go to, the beach you might go to with your parents, but they're all connected and by a really beautiful boulevard where you can ride your bike. I mean, it's just a very walkable city. So yeah, you can take Ubers, but I found myself, meeting for people for dinner on the other side of the city. And it was like a 45-minute walk, but I would just like see all this, old buildings, new buildings, it was just a very interesting place
It's
to
way
be.
healthier to walk too than to take the Ubers.
Oh
I
my
think I
gosh.
lost 8 pounds while we were in Spain.
Yes.
Like it was amazing.
Yeah. And the food was
Even though I ate a ton.
Did you like Spain for me was like bread, cheese, and ham.
So much
Cured
hamon.
meats. Yeah.
I told Sky, not to interrupt your really beautiful story, but
please
the
go
fact that you
ahead.
brought it up, when we first got there, I was like, give me all, it's pronounced hamon, right?
Yeah.
Give me
yeah.
all the hamon. I want like every kind and every flavor from
Yeah.
every little farm in
Right.
Spain. By day 12, I was like, babe, I know you're going to like not believe me when I say this, but if I see another piece of ham for
Yeah.
the next
I'm
month,
hamoned out.
for the next month, I have a hamon hangover
Yeah.
and I don't think I can handle another bite. There. It is phenomenal.
Totally.
Like, I don't know how their ham is so much better than ours, but there's no comparison.
No, it's so good.
Insane. But all the food, I mean, everywhere we went in Spain, the food was on par with Houston, I think, for sure.
Oh, nice.
Which is saying a lot.
Yes.
Saying a lot.
Houston's food is fire.
It really
we don't play with our food.
Yeah.
So, sorry, back to what you were saying. Just the walkability aspect got me really excited because I love walkable cities.
Totally.
And I wish we had that in Houston. I mean, you could walk, but it would not be very smart or safe because you might get hit by a car. It's also not very scenic.
Yeah.
Like, you're not walking past like a Gaudi architecture.
No.
It's not the same.
That's one of the cool things about like just dreaming into the future, which is kind of what I want to get around to is like intentionality mixed with curiosity. Sometimes you don't know what your intention is and your curiosity can lead you to that. But I think in the future, and maybe we can loop back around to this in the future, or in the future of this podcast, it's like in 10 minutes.
Suddenly the future.
Yeah.
It counts.
But foreshadowing.
Like, designing the future with our intentions. Like, I would love for Americans to have more choices of walkable cities that like have food from farms that aren't far away and all that good stuff. So like quickly wrapping up the story of like how Israel gave me my first successful foray into entrepreneurship was I just kept asking people, who created this damn liquor? It's so crazy.
Wow.
And it had this like rumor mill around it that, it's like some guy makes it in his bathtub, like in the north of Israel. Nobody knows who he is. And, growing up in Austin, I had done a marketing project on Tito's, like in college, like close to when Tito's launched. And so I knew that, like Tito beverage, created almost like a new market of like craft liquor in Texas and in the US. So I was just super curious, like who this guy was, because you were starting to see this drink to be at every bar, but it wasn't like I had thought when I tried it. It wasn't a mystical ancient drink. He had only created it in 2012. So after like 6 months, finally a friend of mine is like, I found him. A friend of mine owns a brewery or something in the north of Israel. And I told him that you want to meet him. And this is like, how does this even happen?
Your whole network knows that you're searching out.
Yeah. And there was no like grand.
That's just like the serendipity of the universe. I mean, truly, these beautiful things happen that we can't explain. You're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I get a call from him. Like, he called me. And I remember where I was standing in my apartment in Tel Aviv and, like, just full disclosure, like I have an extrovert, heavy introvert personality. So like sometimes I'm down to be on, but a lot of times I'm shy. So I just saw my phone ringing and I was like, this is the owner of this company. And my intention was to ask him, has anybody brought it to the US? And if nobody has, could I like take a crack at that? Even though like I didn't have a company. I didn't know how to do this. The last time I worked in the restaurant bar industry was when I was a waitress in college. So anyway, I just went for it and I picked up the phone and we just got into a conversation, and a couple days later we had coffee, and one thing led to another.
Did you go see him or did he come down?
He was in Tel Aviv. So he lives in Haifa. His name's Hilal. And shout out to Hilal.
Hey, Hilal.
Yeah.
Rock star.
And
if you're listening to this,
legend.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We just went international.
Yeah. And so he and his brother created this drink, like initially just for their friends in Haifa, which is a beautiful city in the north of Israel. And so, it was intuition based. Like they just came up with this wild mix of herbs that are all from the Mediterranean region. And created this mystical brew. And so the tagline is pure happiness. Like they say it's designed to, like they crafted the mix of herbs to give you like a positive, feeling sensation when you consume it. Like I don't want to say positive drunk because you don't need to get drunk to feel the positivity of it, but it's just the most cheerful buzz that I, as someone who spent 20 years very intimately involved with alcohol, I can definitely say that it is a cheerful buzz. So, long story short.
You are highly qualified to explain 2B60.
And if you drink it straight, which is kind of how I would do it, like not straight only 2B, but, just with soda water or something simple, not adding a lot of extra sugar or other alcohols. Sometimes I'd be in my apartment in Tel Aviv and I would just put on a Rihanna playlist getting ready and I'd forget to go out because I would have so much fun hanging out with myself.
You had Rihanna on.
Me and Rihanna. Yeah.
It was you and Rihanna hanging out.
Yes.
Over 2B.
Right. Even though
in Tel Aviv.
It's magical.
She was definitely there.
Yeah. In my mind, her spirit was chilling with me.
Flows through her music.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, on the plane ride to Spain, to Madrid, I listened to Rihanna Essentials the entire time. It was very relaxing and calming. Made me very happy. And Umbrella, I have such a new appreciation for. Like, I've always listened to Rihanna loosely. Right. I love music. So, I'm really into music. Drake's like my favorite ever. I quote him all the time. T Swift is up there and Garth Brooks. I was like my three humans. Yeah. Very, very big fans. And Rihanna Umbrella. Wow. What a special song. I mean, just like never really listened to the words until
I'm going to have to put that on the car speakers when I get back.
Like, it's just so beautiful. Like, she's just telling this amazing story about, from the metaphor of an umbrella, about how like she is there for her, it was like partner, significant other, like dear friend. She didn't explain exactly, like no matter what comes, like I'm here for you. And it's just like, it was amazing. I told Sky, I went right afterwards, I was like, babe, wow. Like,
do you feel like you're her umbrella?
Like maybe, but just like each other's umbrellas, I guess.
Yeah.
But just incredible to see that, to hear that song in such a new way. I just needed Spain to unleash a different perspective, I guess.
These are the kind of things that get me excited for, not trying to bring this time closer, but I feel like our age group's old folks' homes are going to be so lit. Like,
obviously.
They're going to have to have.
We may be the coolest generation ever. There's no generational bias here.
No, none.
It's a funny thing to think about.
Shout out to C.S. Lewis.
We don't have to go down
bias.
that path, but that's it's a fun hypothesis.
But just how like neurologically linked our memory is to music and like the music of our generation, just to be like in your old folks' home one day, and they're gonna have 6 speaker technology at that time.
I mean, Sonos is already just killing it, so that's going to be another level.
Add years to that, and it's all going to have like neon lights, and so.
Well, just look at how differently we age today. Like, I don't know if y'all seen that. There's like 2 pictures on Instagram or wherever, and it's like the Golden Girls, and then it's the Sex and the City cast.
They're the same age.
Yeah, and it was them at the same age.
Wow.
And I mean, truly, like the Golden Girls did look like they were 90. And the Sex and the City cast looked like they were 40.
Right.
I mean, I think they were actually 50. But it was wild. Like, they looked so much older.
No doubt.
And there's a whole fascinating topic of like longevity science.
Yeah.
That,
absolutely.
I'm sure y'all will have somebody who knows about that.
Something more about that. But
yeah, because we might hit $140 and still be relatively upright and mobile.
Yeah. No, there's a deeper understanding of sort of what are the root causes of aging and like
I would be
what
down
happens
for
at the DNA
long
level,
life, like biblical level.
I don't need to live forever.
995 years.
The question
later.
is like, are you willing to live the
I actually don't know
lifestyle
if
that sort of requires that?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to live 995 years. That might be.
I would take 120 though.
Yeah, I'd be good. I'd be here for a good 120.
It depends on the quality of that last like 30 or 40.
Yeah, the quality factor is the most important. That's why I was, biblical period. It's like, hey, living their best life for
I don't know.
Were
those last 400 years like any good? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
No one really talked about their work-life balance back then.
I think they probably had really great work-life balance.
So you've got like a verbal agreement from this like wild. I'm calling him an alchemist just because it sounds.
Well, I'm gonna try some 2B because
please do.
This is happening.
Blow the glass out this time.
I'll put it here.
Oh, you've learned your lesson.
Yes, and thank you for shaking it. So you'll see in the bottle, I don't know any other bottle that has this. So it's distilled from corn, and then they blend it with a maceration of whole lemons, ginger, cumin, saffron, just like a plethora.
A very bright combination.
Yes. It's like, I tell people it's like if you took a lemon grove and a Mediterranean spice garden and just made them have a baby.
I'm so excited right now. Like
this is
sorry, it's not cold. Like,
this is our first time on the show to
Imbibe.
have a beverage.
Well, this depends because you guys cracked open.
Second time.
Second time.
We're actually on a roll now. This is kind of becoming a new
good.
part of the experience.
Yes,
and-
that counts
Yeah,
as a
because
roll.
wow, that smells. Wait, what did you call it?
It's
Herbaceous.
a mystery
Yeah,
tornado.
this is
Here, let me
herbaceous.
smell it.
Yeah.
This is. Oh my gosh! I just want to keep smelling this. Hold on.
Is there a
for those of you
candles
who are
version
not
of it yet?
watching this
So,
episode?
I
I just
did
want you
make
to know that
incense with it.
You should
Yeah.
be just get some 2B60 original. I have no idea where you buy it, but
Specs,
Kathryn can probably
Total
help you out.
Wine,
It's
you
out
know.
there. Specs. Yeah, we'll put it.
Yeah.
We'll put
Wow.
it in the show
We're
notes.
out here.
That smells insane. Like
Yeah.
you just want to keep smelling. You can't stop.
Because
What's funny too is, at least for me, like I've smelled it 3 times. It smells different every time. Like you pick up like different
And I
notes
just-
as it sort of
Yeah.
I can like
washes
taste it. And
over.
I can taste it in my mouth just from the
It's
smell.
almost like the first wave
Whoa.
is like binds those receptors,
Right.
and then the next wave like it
Yeah.
prioritizes.
That's so
something else.
funny you say that because
I feel like Kathryn needs to smell it, even though she smells it all the time. Because like we're doing
Yes.
an aroma. We're doing aroma tasting right now. This is our first aroma tasting on the show.
oh my gosh, that brings back so many memories.
Lots of Rihanna memories. I hope.
Tons. Just
Umbrella,
beautiful
Ella,
sonic.
Ella, A,
Sonic,
A. How much should I be pouring? Is that like a
That's
sufficient
really good
amount?
to
Okay.
start. It's great mixed with like Topo Chico, soda water. It's best cold, but it'll hit you no matter what. I mean, right?
Whoa.
What does that even feel like?
Herbaceous wonder and neurostorms collectively erupting through the serendipity of the universe of my imagination somewhere on the edge of existence. I think that's what it feels like. There's probably more, but I'm going to go with that for now. I can't quite encapsulate it the same way that Kathryn did, but
That's one
I'm
of my
trying.
favorite reactions I've ever heard, and I've tasted
Yes.
a lot of people on this drink.
why, thank you. take
You're
that as a
welcome.
huge
Thank
compliment.
you.
Whoa, this is insane.
Isn't it wild?
Oh my gosh. It's so good.
Right. And and that's not even dressed up. That's just to be.
That would
Yeah,
be
that's
good
like-
with some
that's
topo.
Mm-hmm.
warm.
I
Yeah.
feel like, because, Tyler and Taylor do the Gillespie Mule,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you'll have some this evening with them. But if you don't, oh no, you won't because you're not drinking anymore. But
yes, I've retired.
yeah, you've retired from alcohol. But I'm going to have to bring this over there and we're going to have to do a Kathryn Mule.
Yes,
with this.
My
it's totally happening.
signature drink that I created with Tubi before I hung up my spurs is Tubi and coconut LaCroix. That is
Wow.
a free
Oh, wow.
plane ticket to the most tropical destinations of your subconscious brain.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make one for you later.
Sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so it just goes to show you that this bottle
Oh
is
my
full
gosh.
of magic because
It's so like warm. Was it just kind of subtly like it like kind of like cuddles you like a blanket.
yeah, it's like the
You
Mediterranean.
kind of see like
It's like a barefoot
we're sort of
dream
replicating this
blanket.
experience where like Kathryn, like you collided with this beverage and it
Yes.
was like there's something here.
Yes.
And
I'm feeling it right now. This evokes curiosity. Like this is
Right?
a barefoot dreams blanket with the Lonnie slippers
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's beautiful.
a really good long warm hug.
So like
Oh,
now,
yeah.
so you are the exclusive distributor of Tubi here in the US.
Somehow, yes, I am. It still is weird to hear me say that.
How many
even-
different states is it in?
We are in Texas was the first state. Then we got to New York, California, Florida, Massachusetts, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. We're in like 14 states or something.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Louisiana. I don't want to forget anybody. Oh, we just got into Washington State.
Nice.
Hometown.
Yeah.
Boom.
Where else?
Back to the
Uh,
old stomping grounds.
Spread the word.
Washington, D.C. Illinois. Did I already say that
You did.
one? Okay. Yeah. So,
Wow.
but
That's
I had
amazing.
no idea what I
Great
was
coverage.
doing
Super cool.
when I started this.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how it went.
This is a
with,
national brand.
we're at least in, a fourth of the
Coast to
country.
coast to coast.
I feel like if you're
We
coast to
are.
coast to coast, you're
We're
national.
That's
tri-coastal.
it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I was doing, but I just was the experiences I'd had, and I would say the most important experiences I had was that this drink really fomented friendship. So you could go out to the club and have like the best night ever, but you could also just sit, in your kitchen with someone and be mixing up cocktails with tap water and have the funnest conversations, just rolling over laughing with one friend.
Amazing though, how it just like is firing in your brain in so many different ways. And like coming into this, I was a little bit just heads down on some stuff. And now I'm here and it's amazing. And we're here with Kathryn, which is so freaking cool. But I was trying to get my mind to like that elevated space. And like this really did like wake me up.
Isn't that fun?
Like it's really cool. Like I get the point about wanting to have different kinds of conversations, just sitting in your home with a few folks because wow.
It's like fully active.
It does. It's interesting. I really want to understand more about. I'm really curious about this product.
So that's how because
it's amazing.
You had to hold a
this
vision.
Is fun because it's just like you had this experience, you described it, and now Brad's sort of like going on this journey.
We're gonna have a little bit more just to make sure that I'm.
Yes.
It wasn't just like a first time experience.
No. Yes. Please.
Did you bump in any challenges like bringing it over, like in terms of scalability, like were they like manufacturing like cases a week and now what's the literally in their bathtub like batch mixing?
No, that was a rumor. That was definitely a rumor. And there were all these rumors like when you would go to bars before I found Till, people would be like, it's got MDMA in it, like it's psychedelic. And I was like, okay, well, like it feels like it really does something to you. I wouldn't say it's psychedelic or, a chemical, but
I haven't started hallucinating yet, so it may not be psychedelic.
The more you dig into that bag, you may, but
even better.
Yeah. But so yeah, it was full of challenges. And I think as a Scorpio, we are able to hold a vision for a long time because it was not an instant gratification. And it's still not like I'm not a millionaire lady from doing this, but what the experience I've gained from doing it has given me the memories of like, Donald Duck's like rich uncle who swims around in a pool of golden coins is how I feel from just what I've gotten out of life, from just pulling the string of this curiosity and being like, can I please bring this to America? Because I know many people who would like to enjoy the fun and the humanness that you can actually experience by sharing this with a friend and other people.
Yeah.
So experienced a lot of challenges. I mean, I started it with my teeny piggy bank, and I don't have a rich uncle who's maybe going to give me a, pot of money. Like I did this with like the little resources that I had. So, and along the way, it's almost like the universe brought me exactly what I need in many different steps and forks in the road, exactly the solution I needed, almost when I thought like things were lost, like the one random example, the first, it took almost 2 years from when Hilal and I sat down to have that coffee until I got the first bottles on the ground in the US. So going through all the paperwork and getting an importer's license, I'm like, what is it? How do you become an importer? And
like
just
literally Googling.
And Google is how I did this, like I didn't have anyone to call and be like, oh, hey, like family business. No, it was none of that. And everyone thought
Google was your mentor.
Crazy to do this. People I told that I was like, well, I'm going to start importing this Israeli alcohol. And they were like, God, Kathryn's always off on some scheme, And, but so
just sort of seen as the insane, like you're just kind of bouncing around to these different places and then you're just coming back home.
Totally. They're like, where have you been? Now you're, and I was just like, trust me.
That's such an interesting point though, right? Because I mean, obviously our show is really here for the crazy ones in many senses. And it's the crazy ones whose crazy ideas aren't so crazy anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But now they're 2B60 that's going national and is in 14 states and continuing to evolve. Like, it's not so crazy anymore, but it's those initial ideas that are perceived as crazy.
Right.
And it's the persistence to maybe half joking, it's the persistence to get them to a point where people no longer say they're crazy, but rather like super badass and awesome.
Right. And when things are already...
You're curating these experiences. Like now hundreds and thousands of people have,
I hope.
I'm guessing here. I'm projecting into the universe.
We have sold thousands of bottles, so you were right.
Yes, thousands of people have
And
had
Ed, you can share this with 10 people. You might be in the millions.
I mean,
you might have blessed millions of people with this wonderful experience.
Unique kind of thing. I mean, I think that's fascinating.
And the funny thing is that it is in so many countries now, but it's all stories like mine. People who found it. It's not imported by any big companies. It's all just a fan who loved it and felt a real connection to like.
It's special. It's not just like another thing that already exists on the shelf somewhere.
Right.
It's innovative. I mean,
it's a category.
I've never
creator.
tasted anything. It is its own category.
Yeah.
I was saying something because I will say, like, Brad, you've got a very sort of broad spectrum palate. Like travel, experiment with lots of things, and to have something hit your lips that like is that distinctive.
Yeah.
Is just like a really cool.
I mean, I can genuinely say, other than like a really lovely tea, I've never tasted anything quite this like magical and like herbaceous.
Yeah, and you can add it to tea.
Yeah, it would be great in tea.
Yeah,
it's
super cool.
It's lovely.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, so there were so many things where I was like, how am I going to get, so many distributors like hung up the phone on me and was like, you got this super niche little startup, bootstrap to the nines like product. But doors would open when I thought there were going to be none. And I thought I was going to have to fold it up and admit defeat. Like one of the biggest examples of this happening was when I finally got the first pallets on the ground in Texas. The guy literally dropped it off to my house, which is not really the way it's supposed to go. I did have a warehouse, but it was more money to get it dropped off there. So he's unloading, he's rolling it with, the dolly to the back of the truck, onto the lift gate that goes up and down. And my dad had come over to my house to just help or whatever, help me move the cases into the garage. And the trucker is like rolling the dolly back and he went a little too far. And I swear to God, we saw these pallets swing. And I was like, no, I thought they were going to fall right off, but he pulled something. He was experienced. So he knew how to do this dolly and it was okay. And I was just like,
teetering on the edge.
Yeah, and so many other stories are just like how you start something from nothing. Well, I'm shocked I don't have a head of gray hair yet. And one day I hope to, naturally. But so it was just
I used to want that.
Sorry, Brad.
I used to always say I can't wait till I'm gray. I didn't realize I'd go bald, but it's fine.
You still have this, like salt and pepper beards are.
It's coming.
Rage.
It's starting. I'm really excited.
Yeah, my partner's got that coming in too.
I'm so ready for it to be fully gray. I think it's just going to look so gnarly.
You got kind of ice caps coming in.
Yeah, it's getting here on the sides a little bit now. Like mine
happened here.
Yeah, you've got this amazing thing going on where it's like blonde. It doesn't look gray though. It looks blonde.
No, it's like blonded out.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And if you paid to have that dyed, it would cost a lot of money. Design is all natural.
Like Mother Earth gave you that.
Yeah, what a gift.
Totally. So yeah, I spent from 2015, we finally got it on the ground in the US in 2017. And just it took me to my highest highs and my lowest lows, where just doing this felt lonely at times to be out on a branch of just I think this is the right thing, but who knows? And it's finally gotten to the point that I'm like, yes, this is working on its own now. So I'm so grateful. And it's been such a blessing to share it with everyone I've gotten to share it with. But in 2020, 1 week before the pandemic, I finally pulled the string on another longtime curiosity of mine. And my partner and I participated in an ayahuasca ceremony in a ranch in Texas. We didn't go down. Are y'all familiar?
No, could you share a little bit about?
Yeah. We just need to double click into what an ayahuasca ceremony is.
Yeah.
Just high level, what does it consist of?
Yes, absolutely.
For everybody that's frantically in Wikipedia.
Yeah. And it
for those that don't know, like me.
Yes.
I definitely want to be so respectful in the way I describe this, because while it is I would say ayahuasca is now in the zeitgeist. It's a multi-thousand-year-old tradition from the Amazon region where the indigenous members of that region have been holding this lineage of so ayahuasca is a combination of two plants, a vine and a leaf. I believe it's the Banisteriopsis copy vine and the chacruna leaf. So in the and I don't want to butcher this, so this is just a quick definition, and please do your research to find out, the actual facts of more of this. But mainly I just want to say thank you to the indigenous communities who held this tradition, because it has been a part of their plant medicine tradition for thousands and thousands, like a long time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so essentially it is one of the most powerful psychedelic plant medicines that exist on Earth. And it's dimethyltryptamine DMT mixed with an MAO inhibitor. So people may be familiar with smokable DMT that is psychoactive and has, maybe a 5 to 10 minute active period. But ayahuasca is a tea that is brewed by communities of shamans who have trained in this for like most of the time their whole lives, and they learn it from their parents and grandparents. And so it's very much like a learned tradition, and you shouldn't go just buy it off the internet and try it.
Yeah.
That would be very bad.
Don't steep it yourself.
It is not a DIY. I'm a DIY person, and I would never DIY this. But the reason people endeavor to sit with or to have an experience with ayahuasca is because it's a very transformative psychedelic experience that you can really break through the veil. Many people describe it as 10 years of therapy in one night. It's definitely not something to be undertaken lightly. It absolutely changed my entire life. I would say it was like scalpel-less brain surgery for me. And so it was also the scariest. We prepared for about 3 months. I quit drinking. I wasn't intending to quit drinking forever, but in order to come to this experience with the respect that I think it deserved, because we did do it with a shaman who had trained with a lineage of shamans in Peru. He was from Mexico, and his team of female helpers and female shamans. So it was a mix of male shaman and female shaman energy, which I think was really nice to have that balance. But so we did it at a ranch in Texas with about 20 people of all walks of life, all ages, men and women, everyone coming to kind of face either a trauma, have an experience, something to really push you into the next phase of your life, or try and look for answers to questions that maybe weren't coming about through the course of your normal life. And my partner and I, when we started dating like a year before, he had asked me, like, have you ever heard of ayahuasca? And I was like, I have an email chain going with a shaman in the Texas area that I've been emailing back and forth with for like 9 months, like thinking like, when am I going to, I had known about it for maybe a decade, but I hadn't, double clicked into doing it. So long story short, there we are on March 6th, 2020, not knowing the world is going to close down in a week.
Yeah. Wow.
And we arrive. There's 2 ceremonial fires going. Everyone sets up their, pallets in the open air in this kind of clearing of trees that almost looked like a tree cathedral. And, the shaman kind of starts to tell us, that this is really an experience to go inward. You are not going to have anyone guiding you through this. You're just going to have the protection of the shamans, keeping the energy of the area in a stable state so that you can have whatever is meant to happen to you. Because as many people say, ayahuasca is a plant spirit of the feminine spirit of the earth that really shows you exactly what you need to know about your life. So everyone will have a different experience. And if you do it multiple times, they'll all be different. But it'll show you as much as you can handle to see what you need to change in your life. And it's no bullshit. It's maybe it will illuminate where you may have been lying to yourself in your life, or what you haven't been wanting to look at. And I definitely got that. So I won't go into
That's amazing.
It's about an 8-hour experience. Yeah. And so it was a two night thing. So essentially I had the most phantasmagoric night of my life. I saw things with my own eyes and things in visionary states that I had never expected to see. Very unexplainable, but it really was true. Like it busts your heart open. You feel empathy for like everything. But what came to me is that my drinking era was over. And I was also no longer going to eat meat. It just came. I was just sitting there. I was like, oh, I'm not drinking ever again. And it just, I hadn't intended to quit drinking, but I just knew I was done. And all kinds of other things. My relationship with money. I realized, like, while we all need money in this society to live, like, I wasn't chasing the accumulation of wealth. It really broke me open to my aliveness, which I had not really looked at from that frame of mind before, of that I'm a human person just as everybody else is, experiencing this singular lifetime. And then you get to the point where, that when the plant is really kind of got you in the strongest point or the peak of the experience. And I felt as though, and I can't explain it, but while I'll lose this body at the end of this lifetime, it really gave me the sense that my consciousness keeps on going. And I don't know what that means, but it definitely is like reframed my relationship with how I view death. But what it did the most was reframe my experience of what I want to do with the rest of this life that I've been gifted by whatever the source of life is. So
you felt like you sort of like were confronted with like your purpose in a
yes.
way, like sort of seeing through
yes.
like the thicket of life up to that point.
Yeah.
But sort of like seeing beyond. And so in some ways, like contextualizing your own mortality.
Yes. And it really made, and I think, because everyone goes through their childhood traumas, whether they're big or small, whatever shape or form they come in for you. And I, moving through life, I had done it somewhat unconsciously, even though I had consciously nurtured my curiosity and nurtured my intention to the best I could with however mature my consciousness was at the time. But this really put me face to face with the fact that it broke me open to the gratitude for being alive that I had not been giving credence to for whatever reason. And as soon as that weekend was done, I called everybody I loved and was like, holy shit, I am so grateful for each and every one of you. And if I don't tell you I love you enough, that's not going to be a problem anymore. And every day since then has kind of just been piecing together that 2-night situation and experience that I was so lucky to get to have. I didn't even have to fly to Peru where, this medicine originally comes from. And then 6 days later, it was COVID.
Do you think the isolation period of the pandemic played a role in that being maybe more impactful than it might have been had you entered right back into society?
Absolutely. It was the craziest gift. And when I say COVID was a gift, I don't want to obfuscate how deeply, how much loss that happened in so many families. So just a huge, condolence and respect for everyone who lost someone during COVID. But as so often happens in life, trauma and big events of chaos can also shake out where we haven't found new ways to push forward in the world, in your own life, your community, and much beyond.
Can become a catalyst and like an enabler in ways by restacking sort of priorities.
So kind of looping back to the story I started at the beginning where I mentioned that I spent my childhood summers on my grandparents' farm. A few months before this ayahuasca experience, I had gotten fascinated in the topic of industrial hemp because in 2018, Congress passed the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized industrial hemp cultivation for the first time in something like 70 years. And hemp, for those who don't know, is just cannabis that has, it's very much like a semantic definition of a plant, but any cannabis plant that has less than 0.3% THC is considered cannabis. So you can grow it for industrial agricultural purposes. You can get a license in Texas for $200 and grow it in your backyard and have your own CBD. But so the farm that I spent my childhood on, wasn't really doing anything. And my grandpa was, in his mid 90s at that point. So I, went through this book called Hemp Bound by an author named Doug Fine, who's just my hemp hero. Shout out to you, Doug, if you ever hear this. And so I bought a copy.
Thanks for listening, Doug.
Yeah. It basically takes you through the plethora of amazing uses of the hemp plant. CBD is just the tip of the iceberg. It can be used to make plastics. Hemp oil is rich with omega-3 fatty acids. You can use it to feed yourself, feed animals. You can make concrete out of hemp. You can use it for biofuel. It just like goes on and on. So I just, as someone who deeply cares about the environment, but was seeking ways to figure out like, what's my role in helping save the earth? And I think that can be a tough question for people to figure out what their place is in that global human task. So I bought copies for my aunts and uncles, and I was like, we all need to regenerate the farm by growing hemp. But, they've all been part of the decades long, war on drugs and all the propaganda that's come with that. And my grandpa, I was like, your neighbor, I looked up on the state list of licenses, your neighbor's growing hemp. And he was just not into it. So I just started growing it in my garage during COVID. And because gardening has always been a part of my life. Like my great grandmother, who I saw get food out of the land every year. And that was how our family survived for generations, from her generation back until we were cavemen. And that's true for everyone's families, in this exactly. Amazon generation.
You don't have to go too far back where that was very much the case.
Yeah. Where many of us can get caught in the trap of where's my package? I want the instant gratification. Just a little bit back in your history, that was not how it worked, since forever. So anyway, I ordered hemp seeds. I looked into the licensing process, and I just started in my garage. And I had this side idea that I wanted to one day provide wherever my mother is going to retire. She currently lives with my grandfather and has been taking care of him, although he doesn't need a whole lot of taking care of because he's a wild rascal. But, she's been out there for 20 years. So
Where are they located?
It's in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, about an hour between Savannah and Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
10 miles on the South Carolina side.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
There's a golf course in that area called Sage Valley.
Okay.
That is kind of I've golfed there.
Yeah.
In that sort of right in that sort of area. It's a beautiful part of the country.
Yes, it's the low country. Boiled peanuts are big. I mean, it's an interesting part of the country, but and it's very peaceful. But things like industrial hemp, I think, have the possibility to reinvigorate the economic situations of parts of America that have kind of been forgotten by the industrial age. And so, that's a whole nother topic. But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thinking about what are some of the products that could be kind of today help to modernize some of those environments and keep them relevant.
Right.
And provide new economic stimulation.
Yeah.
Because it may not be what it once was, but there might be opportunities like this that are staring us in the face that we can really use for economic stimulation in these areas that have been hit really hard by their industries being impacted greatly.
Right. That little town when a bigger highway.
Where are those conversations at scale? Let's get call to action. Let's get those conversations going.
And that's what this book, Hemp Bound, just it was the Tubi of my brain being oh my gosh, so many of our generation have lost our connection with nature just because it's just how societies develop. But it doesn't mean society can't now that we've gone in this amazing direction of developing technology, We can find ways to reintegrate ourselves. It's almost like we had to go to this side of the spectrum before we kind of come back to a balance with nature. And that's what, long story short, hemp has done for me in my own personal life through cultivating, just to grow. The first time I grew one hemp plant, it takes about 7 months, depending on how you can do it shorter, you can do it longer. But I did it in my garage through COVID. And so I had all this time on my hands to take care of these plants like they were my little babies. And what I started to notice is that, if you garden, you do kind of have this innate understanding of patience and time, and that it's not an instant gratification situation. But, before that, I'd always grown like tomatoes, where if I messed up, I could go to Whole Foods or Safeway and get a tomato. Yeah. But that wasn't the case with some of the cannabis I was growing. There wasn't a store that sold this that I could get what I was intending to get at the end of this grow cycle. And what I didn't realize was happening to me throughout this process was growing a cannabis seed out from start to finish is an alchemical process for your soul as a human. And it took a while for that to dawn on me. And I think the first time that really started crystallizing was the first time I started growing it outside. Because the first time I grew it indoors because I was worried, like you can get the license, but do the police know the difference between, because it looks the same as regular weed. Sure. So I was doing it in the garage. But when I first got the flowers, I started that February 2020, and I first harvested my first plant in late July 2020. And I had was in the Reddit weeds, like figuring out like what to do to just make sure I grew these plants as best as I could as a novice. And when I had them all, I jarred them up and I was giving them out to my neighbors and Taylor and Tyler and all my friends. And I was so excited to share this medicine that I grew with my own 2 hands and some dirt.
I had the chance to try one of the one of the smokables.
Oh,
with Tyler and Taylor, and that was really special.
They're fun, right?
Well, actually, that was the night that they brought your name up, and
cool.
Said, oh my gosh, you have to have Kathryn on the show, and it was the write up on the back.
Yeah,
that just I felt like it was like a kindred spirit. I mean, I don't think I got to share it with Scott. I told him about it, but I mean, that's like my writing style, and so I was like, wow, this is one, this is a dope female. And two, this is definitely one of my kind of humans for sure. And so having you on today, just to pause from it, was super special.
Oh, thank
because
you.
Just the way that you think and see the world and life and humanity and the universe is really cool. And I got barely a trailer. And so today, we're getting to unpack this in such a really neat way. And it's super exciting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful
Can you share
reflection.
the name of the companies? That's also amazing.
So this is where all this is led.
Don't jump ahead if you're.
Oh no!
If there's a whole story to that too.
We're exactly at the point of the story where Rancho Scorpio comes alive. So
such a great
that's
name.
What I'm doing
Fantastic.
in life right now is I'd had all
We're
these
kindred Scorpios, by the way.
Really? What's your birthday?
November 17th.
November 8th.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, a little dap there for the Scorpio power.
Love it.
Yeah. And my partner, funny enough, he was born 3 actual days before me. So we're both Scorpios. And my great grandmother, who was like my, she was who I kind of called out to during the ayahuasca ceremony. Was like, I need this ancestor on deck for whatever's about to happen in this situation. Her birthday is the same as my partner. So it's like a triple Scorpio factor. And I feel like she is the one who kind of arranged whatever needed to happen in the ethers so that I was able to get Rancho Scorpio. So Rancho Scorpio is my 20-acre little plot of land outside of Mason, Texas, in the Fredericksburgish area.
Love Mason area.
You've heard of it?
Oh yeah, Trace Lunas. Love that place.
Oh, cool. Yeah, not many people.
Have you been
know.
over to Trace Lunas?
I haven't.
It's in Mason. It's a beautiful little bed and breakfast. They have all of 4 rooms, and they have a little guest ranch house off to the side. Awesome couple that runs it.
Oh.
Shout out to Trace Lunas. If you haven't ever stayed there, go stay there. They have this beautiful infinity pool. They don't have TVs in each of the little casitas.
Why would you need them out there?
Yeah, and it's really magical. I love the Mason area. I mean, I love the whole hill country.
Yeah.
But Mason's a really special area. That's super cool you're out there.
It's crazy.
And land's still kind of affordable out there, like ish.
I didn't think so, basically way before I had the money, I had started looking for land just to put that intention out there. And I would talk to my sister about it. We were like, maybe we'll do it together. But, my idea was like, I want to get my mom a house, like out near in the country because she likes the country. And I want it to be in Texas because South Carolina's, far. So that was a plan before I knew what it was even going to be. So, the ayahuasca ceremony happened in March, and then I really got into growing hemp, and it just became such a passion. And giving it to my neighbors who, had different. Everybody's got different things going on, and cannabis as a medicine can help you with meditation. It can relieve body pain. It can spur creativity. It can help with anxiety. I mean, it can do so many things if you scratch the surface of your curiosity with it. So in fall of that year, I was really like, I really want to get down to the business of finding a piece of property. But, it was intimidating. I was doing it by myself. I didn't have, anyone kind of guiding me along this process, but it turns out the universe stepped in and did it for me. So, I had put a teeny amount of money into some psilocybin biotech stocks. And I'm not a professional investor. And so this is not investment advice either.
We'll put a little disclaimer.
Yeah.
Do not necessarily follow this advice.
No.
But enjoy the story of what happens
exactly.
next.
So in about October, I put a little bit of money in my old E-Trade account that, had cobwebs in it. And then in December, I went on a ladies' mushroom hike with some people I had met through the ayahuasca ceremony I had participated in. And we went out to Enchanted Rock. And I hadn't been there. Right? It's such a beautiful, special place.
That's a fun little hike. I mean, it's super quick, but it's really fun.
Yeah. And I hadn't been there since I was like a child in the 90s with my family. And so, we didn't do a large amount of mushrooms. It was a very, light dose so you could walk, but it enhanced your kind of communion with nature. And so at this one point, we were just sitting there, everyone was having their quiet time, and I'm looking at these megalithic boulders. And I just had this moment where I like flashed back to like 1995. It felt like 30 seconds of time travel. I'm not saying it was, but and I just had this feeling of peace back to like some time in my childhood where everything was good. And the rest of the day was just kind of magical. And I had been looking, so, I get home and I had taken a little break from looking for land because I had just gotten kind of daunted with the process. And I was like, what am I doing? Is this another time where I was
it's like really overwhelming?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And I was like, am I crazy? Because, no, my mom wasn't asking me to buy her a little retirement spot. Like, it was just something I thought I should do. And I
pressing need. Yeah. Sort of the timing.
It was just some thought that was coming through from the universe in my brain. So I didn't really have the money even, but I had put like a teeny couple $1,000s, which I was so grateful to have, in this investment account. And the biotech stocks had been kind of on the creep up. And, I would check it every couple days and be like, wow, I've kind of never had that much money in an account before. Weird. But it wasn't anything crazy. So when I got home that evening, I never thought I could afford anything in the hill country because it's kind of,
it's posh these days.
It's bougier than it was.
Fredericksburg is called like the Aspen of the South now. I mean, there's like legit celebrities living there and
new
very wealthy people.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's over 400 wineries in within Texas.
It's nuts.
And it was funny. We were staying at a bed and breakfast not too long ago over that way. And the host that owned the bed and breakfast said, just go to the airport and just see how many private jets are flying in and out. And we just happened to go walk in a park. It happened to be by the airport. So that was kind of cool. And legitimately, like, private jet after private jet after private jet on like a random Sunday in the middle of like October last year, just taking off and landing. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And they're in Fredericksburg, Texas. And like, not small private jets, like ginormous private jets. Like just, it was freaking crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Yeah,
'Cause when I
that
was
area
little,
has exploded.
It's super crazy. When I was
I mean,
little,
it's
there were
amazing.
no wineries. I mean, there might have been like 2, but your parents would drive you out to Fredericksburg so
and it
you
was
could go
not
to the,
good.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you could go to the German restaurant and go to
Yeah,
on the way to
obviously,
to
yeah.
Enchanted Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that German restaurant
Yeah.
right there on Main Street. I don't know the name of
Exactly.
it.
I don't
but
know the
yeah,
name of it
but I've been
either.
there once.
Yes.
Twice.
So that was my
Yeah.
sort of the memory that still existed in my head of Fredericksburg because it was where you would stop on the way to Enchanted Rock. So when I was looking for land, I was looking like in between Austin and Houston, not out west, because I was like, that's too big for my britches.
Way prettier.
Although there's
I
some
mean,
beautiful areas in the middle.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But the hills, you just,
The hill
They're-
country is a special
it's special.
place.
No matter
in the
where Sky
world.
and I have traveled in the world,
Yeah.
Texas Hill Country has our heart. Houston and the
land.
Texas Hill Country just have our
Yeah.
hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had kind of I was like, for the holidays, I'm not gonna be like texting my real estate agent all the time and whatnot. But when I got home from that hike, I had just had such a transformational experience that day. I just popped open Trulia, and this 20-acre ranch with the little house, a little old house from the 30s, popped up in it, and I hadn't seen it before, and it was shockingly in my teeny price range. And I still didn't really have the money, but I texted it to my real estate agent anyway. And I was like, do you think we could wiggle the price on this? And he was like, I don't know. One way to find out. Do you want to ask? And I was like, yeah, let's set up a showing. The next morning, I looked at my E-Trade account and it had quadrupled.
Wow.
Like, to the point that it would totally pay for the down payment
That's amazing.
on this place. And I was like, I didn't even know how to process this information.
That's incredible.
The timing was the weirdest of almost anything that's ever happened to me. So I sold that shit. And
As you should.
yeah.
As you should.
And
Did it continue to increase? Did you look at the stock?
No, like it definitely did a dip
Wow.
and it never came back. But I would
Wow.
still encourage, I still believe wholeheartedly because of the transformation and self-healing I've been able to experience with psychedelic plants and fungi, that this is going to be a fascinating industry. And there's a lot to unpack about, it colliding with the pharmaceutical industry. So that's a whole nother topic. And it is
Well, and there's a lot of stigma around it and society. And
so much.
That plays a huge role. But I think a lot of times that's just like anything that's foreign to our brains.
Yeah.
We tend to like villainize that which we don't understand. It's natural. Goes back to
Right.
very early primitive time
Yeah.
periods. Saber-tooth tiger, fight or flight, right?
Right.
But there's like such an opportunity in the spirit of curiosity
Yeah.
before we have judgment, like explore things for
Yeah.
yourself and like learn about them because,
Yeah.
like one path might appear to be right today in society, but
Yeah.
there may be an opportunity for something that's more natural or that's actually
Right.
better for us. That,
Right.
like today we're totally fine taking pharmaceutical drugs and we have no issue with that. But natural herbs, like
Yeah.
we, for some reason, are like vehemently opposed to simply because society has told us one is right and one is wrong.
Right.
So like challenge the status quo a little bit and ask yourself some questions.
And
It's a little,
that's
maybe like just caveat for the episode for those that aren't as familiar
Sure.
with this type of product.
yeah.
And
that's funny you say that because in my journey of spending an evening or two with ayahuasca, previous to that, I had been through some of the toughest moments of my entrepreneurial journey. I didn't sleep on my own for 2 years when I was really, getting this off the ground.
yeah.
And I was prescribed Ambien, Adderall. I went to a psychologist to get these medicines, these pharmaceuticals, and
Probably
Xanax.
prescribed them pretty freely.
Yes, they
the way that
did.
it's
And if
working.
I had taken everything that I was prescribed, I think I would be in the grave.
Yeah.
And so that was not working out for me to have a 2-year journey where I was utilizing pharmaceuticals to manage my stress, my anxiety, and the fear that I was experiencing around doing something that I had no idea how I was going to land the plane that I'd taken off, built in the air, and was like figuring out my route.
Yeah.
And so I completely quit taking all of those medicines completely cold turkey after my experience with ayahuasca. And I will say that, that's probably not a recommended thing for many people who are, prescribed and habitually taking Adderall and Ambien. But for some reason, the ayahuasca just removed the desire to take those medicines completely from my brain. And I'm still kind of shocked.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Even like the dependency factor of the time that it takes to
and for
wean
someone
off of
who
that.
had been a heavy drinker for 20 years, because that was kind of the culture I grew up in like Texas high school society. And, my parents didn't really guide me one way or the other. And it's no shade to them about that, but that was just the culture I grew up in, was a very binge drinking social culture. And I think that can be pretty common in Texas, the US, and other parts of the world. But I wouldn't say it was a lifestyle I'd recommend. Although I did get many amazing experiences meeting people, it wasn't something that was going to be productive for what I had in front of me, like the opportunities I really wanted to sink my teeth into going forward. So long story short, I checked my E-Trade account, and somehow I actually have a down payment that I can use to buy this teeny little 20-acre piece of land in Mason, Texas. So my real estate agent and I go out there, we look at it, and I'm like, it was winter, so it wasn't even the majestic of spring, that later followed in the next year. And I looked at it and I was like, it's a cute little house. It's not big. It needs a lot of work, but it's great for me. And he just looked at me and was like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to like do this? And I was like, I had a 2-second conversation with myself, and I was like, oh my God, there's nobody else to ask. Like, you're on deck now. Like, are you going to be a big girl or what? And so I was just like,
this is your moment. You own it.
Do it.
Never let it go.
Let's do it. So, that then followed, a 6-week-long process of doing all the paperwork to get the offer accepted and, find a appraiser. But it all worked. And it shocked me. Like the day I signed those papers, I really just remembered back to my great grandmother, who actually was the first woman in my family to own land because her husband died 40 years before she did. And she never remarried because her life was really chill. And she was just like, I'm going to stay on this land and keep doing what I've been doing, engaging with the earth for my survival. And her mental health was probably some of the best in our whole family. So, what that led me to be able to do, and I'm still processing the gratitude that the universe gave me the opportunity to go back to the land. So what I've really been doing the last 2 years since I've been the owner, and it is kind of weird to own land, like who can really own nature, but I really more feel like I'm the guardian of this beautiful piece of land where there's just quartz crystal that's just popping up all over. Like you take a walk and you just are just dripping in quartz crystal that's just hanging out there because the geology of that part of Texas is so fascinating. But so I got the little house ready. And so this year, my focus has been, I want to share not only cannabis as medicine, but, and so that's where Rancho Scorpio comes in. Like now we're getting the field ready to do our first inaugural commercial grow of hemp, where, everything to this point has kind of been my getting it ready, trials, learning my skills as a cultivator and a farmer. But essentially I've been working to get my great grandma's job back, which as a consultant years ago at Accenture, Deloitte, I didn't think I was going to one day have like farmer on my business card. And so
it's the beauty of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
It takes us, in my meditation recently, I'm reading this book along with my meditation called The 100 Days to Brave. And there's this really cool recent excerpt that I was reading about, we all have like one call or one why or one big ambition, but there's multiple expressions of it.
Sure.
And there's so many ways, like you said, like things that you learned in consulting, you've been able to apply, or just like maybe there are even elements of that you applied while you were there that you're still applying here, which the expression has shifted or changed or evolved.
Yeah.
And it resonated with me really well because I'm a huge why person. And,
I love that.
I thought it was a really cool way to explain it.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because this gets me to the why I want to share cannabis with people. And it kind of goes back to what you saw, the little message on the back of my tester boxes that you guys got to have a couple months ago.
I feel like we need to like share that description. It's really beautiful.
And it's on the back of
we should,
those
we'll have
packs.
to, we'll post it. We'll put it as like a quote in the show notes.
Yeah. So essentially getting that land was just the beginning of the journey. And so being in that place that, so I spent the following year mostly out there DIY. My partner, thank God, he's the most patient man on the planet. You guys might be too, but for my life, he was game for. I bought a 1996 Ford F-150 for $2,000 on Facebook Marketplace, and my dear father, who's a mechanic, like has rehabbed her, and like basically she runs like she just came off the lot. But we went to
That's
Lowe's.
so picturesque.
That's so
just for the
awesome.
record,
It's so
what
crazy.
color is it?
I was
red. Her name's Betty Rouge.
That's amazing, Betty Rouge. I love it.
Yeah, she's
in my head, I had like a two-tone baby blue and white, but red's also lovely.
I've seen those on the road, and those are nice. But I mean, because I grew up learning to drive on my grandpa's 86 Dodge Ram pickup, single cab. But Betty Rouge is a standard.
Whoa.
She's just so fun. Like she's like driving a street tractor. And I love it. It's therapeutic. But so I didn't have, that was all the money I had. So there was no like call the contractor and get them to like make it all Pinteresty. It was like YouTube and go to Home Depot and stuff. So we did that for a year, getting it ready for my mom's first visit out there. But that experience of being on the land and being like, oh my God, when you walk around, outside of the house, you're like, this land is kind of the same as it would have been 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, maybe minus some of the non-native plants that people brought. But you just get such a respect for that. You're not the only person who's ever been there. You're not going to be the only person
transience of your nature.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what this kind of idea started brewing in my mind of, like one day I hope to start a podcast. And the main question I want to ask people is, because this is what I would think about many times out there on that land, is not only the indigenous people, the Comanches, the Lipa and Apaches were some of the tribes that called that land home. But, the people who came to the U.S. seeking better lives with whatever information they were told about what the new world was, to leave, where your home is a crazy, thing for most people to do. And just that compassion of, morality aside, so many humans have struggled to create better lives for themselves and their descendants by following their curiosity. And it can be so messy, but we have this opportunity, I feel like, of our generation is the first generation that's really had the technology to communicate with everyone around the world. And the abundance, if you're lucky enough to have it in this moment, to think back, to take a pause and to think back to your lineage and your ancestral line and how it's crisscrossed with the ancestral lines of so many other cultures. And to think back. And so the kind of thread question is if you think about how to design the future, can you do due diligence to that, to design a future that's fair for everyone? Whether it's 10,000 years from now that we get there or 1,000, like to take the time pressure off of it. But to dream of a beautiful future where everyone has a home, everyone can have food and shelter, and the things that constitute human dignity. We will be able to, if we collaborate as a human species, and we're not now starting to get the technology to be able to do that. We just have to piece it together, that one day that will be possible. Like, I just know as a human species, we're creative enough to create that reality. I don't know when it's going to be, but I do think that a fascinating, beautiful way to get there is to think about not only your own life, definitely to start with your own life and to think what your childhood was like. Who were your parents? How did they come together? What were the realities of their cultures, their financial situations, the economic pressures, the societal pressures that created who you are? And not to blame them for anything that may have been unideal in your life, although that may be something you need to go through, but to then do that to the generation behind them, like their parents, your grandparents and your great grandparents, and to kind of issue compassion through marinating or meditating on what their life realities were like.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you can learn so much through that just like contemplative process. And then that almost builds like seeds of reverence in you, so that when you start to really pay attention to your own aliveness and what you actually can do with it, and that we are now stewards of so many gifts of their sacrifices, be they moral or not, whatever happened in your family line, we now are sitting in this room with things that capture our images, things that capture our voices, and we can start to share our lives with other people in ways that we can actually dream and think in 100 years, it's unacceptable for people to be, to have unfairness in their life because of the color of their skin or the languages they speak or their sexual preference, and so many other things that are not right in the world. I think we can architect a beautiful future through the inheritance of everything our ancestors have sacrificed for us to be here. And so to loop that back to cannabis, what I gained from the knowledge of growing my own medicine, and mostly I just use CBD now, even though THC is a fantastic medicine for many things. But to grow a seed that's so tiny, and if you put it in the ground and you give it a little love and you work with the earth and you work with the seasons and you start to pay attention to the seasons and you start to see how your life is growing along with this plant. And at the end, through however many moons it's taken you to get to the flower, you then take the medicine that the earth grew and you nurtured. It's an alchemical process that helps you learn how to develop self-love, which I think is a really grounding thing to have in your life that can connect you back to all of the people that are in your line. And then you start to look at other people with that same perspective of like anyone you meet on the street. The fact that they're here means everyone in their lineage, like, dodged the saber-toothed tiger, whatever it is, they survived.
Against the
odds. And to the message that's on the back of my packaging, essentially it's an invitation to say, what would the world be like if we all tried to, in whatever way, you don't need to live on a farm, you don't need to even have a yard, you can do it in a planter, to become gardeners of your own life, so that as a society, as humanity, as a species, we can one day become gardeners of the earth. Because as we see with technology, there's a light side and a dark side, and humans are apex predators, but we're also capable of intense love and empathy and creativity. We have so much going on in our brains. It can really spin us out into so many directions, but if we connect it to our heart through learning self-love, it's a much safer way to utilize the full package of what a human can do, especially when we start collaborating. And so to wrap this up, my invitation is to start thinking about, as a species, if we know that we're the most powerful animal that's ever lived, we can destroy this planet, and we're doing that in many ways. But that also means if things are, poles and polarity, if we can destroy it, we can also be the saviors. What other species has opposable thumbs that could create technology to deflect an asteroid? And so that's kind of the being out on the land, going into my own versions of, crazy and meditative states and hanging out in nature. My invitation through these products I'm creating by sharing the cannabis I'm growing, each package comes with a cannabis seed. So yeah, I'd love for you to buy my stuff because it's good and I like it and I put my heart into it. But what my real invitation is to become a gardener of your mind, of your heart, of your life, so that we can all, if it takes 1,000 years, I think we can do it quicker. But if we can become gardeners of the earth as a species, as we grow green technologies, as we give everyone the space to live a peaceful life, I think that's going to be a fascinating possibility for humanity. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just how can I use my little gift? I don't have Jeff Bezos money, but I have so much heart, and I put that into the plants I grow. And on my social media, I'll be helping people, showing people like how you put that seed in the ground and how in a few months you can get your own flower. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to.
Kathryn, you're an incredible storyteller. This has been like really amazing. Like, I can't believe it's been like an
Same.
hour and a half.
I don't,
Like,
I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, we're close to 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened before. Like, I'm just sort of like sitting here, like just like this invitation and just this experience that you've created is just a really beautiful thing, and just
Thank
like
you.
really has been just like an absolute privilege to like be here and to hear your perspective. And there's just some, it's like hard. I feel like I want to like kind of close it out. We don't have to like stop talking. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's my story. Well, I've gotten to the end of
I love
my...
like I mean, it was just it was just beautiful. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with beautiful.
Oh,
and
thank y'all.
Magical and serendipitous and lovely.
And we've got this challenge in season 2 of coming up with a question for the audience to sort of consider. And you've kind of posited one in the sense you've got kind of this invitation.
You've kind of done that.
And so I don't know if there's much to build on from that sense, or if we just amplify
I just want to expand
that,
a little bit on it, maybe, because it's focused, which I love. However, we have people of all kinds of kinds. And so I want to take the spirit of what you shared, Kathryn, and kind of say, how could you be a gardener of your boldest ambitions?
Oh, I love that.
And so I think that's our question for this episode.
Come up with something tangible. And actionable.
Yeah.
You can go and do.
Yeah. It's been fun because we don't pre-plan the question for each episode.
Oh,
it just has to come up during the conversation.
And
as it comes up, we ask it to the audience, and that's kind of our call to action.
Yeah.
Except for our call to action isn't a statement, it's a question, because it's curiosity. We don't want to give answers. We want to ask questions. And so
I love that.
So so how could you be a gardener of your boldest ambitions?
I love that. Because it requires
and take that onward,
self-reflection.
Like, there's a spirit that we've kind of wrestled with of like curiosities, like just beyond the edge of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And this today has been a story of, I feel like, being just beyond the edge of the universe, just beyond the constraints of what we see to what we believe, and to kind of be bold enough to just peer over that edge and look, or to walk to that edge and peer over and look and see like what's there.
And the courage and the trust and faith that like that new, as that new horizon rolls in, and as that happens,
and the persistence,
that there is something there that's coming, and that in many ways that can be new and exciting and beautiful.
I love that. There's always something there. Just are we, willing and brave enough to peek over the edge of the universe and see what's there for us?
Courage to let it sort of roll in, because I love the phrase that the only constant is change. Like there's always something that's sort of coming, and so so I like having to identify like that, what that bold ambition is, to be able to sort of come up with that actionable stuff to sort of cultivate and garden that.
Yeah. And like you were just saying, it can be scary to chase your curiosity to the edge of what you may know. But I think if I can speak from my experience, even if you are at, a place that you have never been, you're at your edge of your fear, somehow the universe will always meet you with the step that you need next. And so I think being a gardener of your curiosity and finding an intention, like my definition of magic is it's aligned intention plus time. If you find your intention and you try and align with it, and you just let time work and you let the universe bring it to you, magic will happen. And so to start to kind of, get your sea legs of learning to surf, uncertainty, but having the faith to chase curiosity, you'll start to see that the universe just avails the path as you go.
There's something in like the purpose of life is like
I heard it described recently
sprinkled in that.
as life's energy. That's what we all have. We have so much of life's energy, and we get to, it's like our currency, and we get to give that every day in different ways. And we have so much to give, and we should be really intentional about how we give it. It was kind of a correlation to like viewing your relationship with money differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I see money as fuel for advancing purpose. And like the more money I have, the more I can advance purpose. I used to say like, I don't care about money, to a certain point. Like obviously there's a basic needs level, but once that's met, like then I'm not doing things for money. I'm not climbing a career ladder. Like I'm doing it purely out of passion and out of purpose and ambition and goals and things like that. And so this idea though, I read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and he really helped me reshape my relationship with money to see it as fuel for advancing purpose. The more fuel we have, the further we can advance our purpose in whatever way that might be. And Sky recently read a book about life's energy. So it's kind of a great synonym to it of like, we all have a certain amount of life's energy, and like, just be intentional every day. Like from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed, till the moment you wake up, till the moment you go to bed, every single day for the entirety of your existence on this earth, you have life's energy. And so like, don't ever take a single second for granted. You talked about time. Like time is our greatest resource. And I don't think we realize that oftentimes. Like we forget that like time is everything. And whether it's, investing or it's magic or it's whatever it is that we're trying to do in our days, like whatever time we have is like our greatest gift, and maximizing that time is such an honor to be able to do that, and to be a guardian of our time and a gardener of our time, I think is a really important thing.
Oh, I love that.
That identification of purpose is something we're having a conversation today about, sort of the impact of the pandemic on kids. And I've got 4 kids, and, sort of like seeing kind of what that sort of isolation did, and used to, when you're not careful, sort of identity drifts. But sort of what is interesting is like the identification of purpose enables you to have an abundant mindset and sort of allow for that patience and that sort of universal shifting of the sands. But like if you're anchored in purpose, then it enables you to sort of allow the things that don't align with that purpose to sort of wash over you and sort of move on, and you don't get sort of saddled with and burdened with all of these things that, because you, for lack of purpose, you feel like you have to capture everything, or like that sort of mentality. There's just when you describe sort of mental health, it's sort of like I'm not a psychologist, but in some ways, like the definition of that is the sort of that comfort of that ease of being, because you've got sort of clear mission, purpose, and everything else doesn't then even have to sort of like bother you. It's just kind of wash over, but then when the thing hits the horizon that you see that aligns with it, the time has arrived, when to take action, and you depressurize your life in so many ways.
Well said
man. So I feel like we need to just like thank you for coming on the show. Like I don't even know like how to say it in like such a like thank you. This has been really special.
Thank you.
So cool to have you on.
It's been just magic.
Thank you guys. This was my first podcast ever, and I was so excited. And thank you so much for following your passion in starting this. And the conversations I've listened to of your episodes I've listened to so far, y'all are really just doing a service by following your passion. And this is what humanity needs. So thank y'all for being part of the gardeners of the earth.
Oh, thank you.
Boom.
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 Thank you for listening. Join Brad and Scott next time on the Curiosity Podcast.